The Flight 8 launch date moves, SpaceX modifies their launch license, and what's the status of the Flight 7 mishap investigation? We'll dig into all that and more on tonight's Countdown to Launch.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome in, everybody, to Countdown to Launch here on NSF. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Gene Rowley, joined by some amazing commentators tonight. Let's bring in Sawyer Rosenstein. Everybody knows Sawyer. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. We had a fantastic day up at the Cape of 2 launches. Now we just need the big silver one to go. Once that happens, that will be great. And also, for those wondering, the ghost that lives inside my lamp has been exorcised, so that should be better.
That's always good when you can exorcise the ghost in the lamp. Also joining us tonight to answer your questions, the one and only Ryan Weber.
Hey everyone, how's it going tonight? Yeah, get to talk about Flight 8. This is going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, you get, well, I don't know if I'd call it delayed, but at least it did get pushed, but we'll talk about that.
We are going to talk about that. Don't steal the thunder. We're going to have a good time tonight. We have so much to talk about with Flight 8, with Booster 15 on the launch mount, hot stage ring, Ship 34, all kinds of stuff. Just if you're watching Starbase live, you'll know what we've been watching all day today. The entire NSF crew's been running around doing things, getting ready for the launch that was supposed to be tomorrow. So let's dig right into that. The big news is, of course, if you follow SpaceX, you follow them on X, they, of course, moved the launch to Monday. Now, they had a Saturday date, but they officially announced late last night that they would be moving, and we're going to probably spend the next 2-3 hours talking about that. We don't know why, but I'm going to go around the room and kind of just have them guess. Like, what, Ryan, I'll start with you. Why do you think that we have a delay? We were supposed to go Wednesday. They moved it to Friday, and Friday to Monday. What do you think's going on?
I'll say the same thing I said during the Raptor side. There's a certain vehicle that's not at the pad yet, and that is not even on a transport stand yet. That vehicle being Ship 34, it's still in Mega Bay 2. It looks like it's hooked up to the 4-point lifter. At least that's what it kind of appears like they did. Other than that, it's still there. I would assume that is the reason for the push in the date, because, well, half the rocket isn't even at the pad yet. So,
Yeah. I want to dig a little bit deeper. Sawyer, why do you think that we haven't even seen the ship roll out yet? It did a 60-second static fire at Massey's, and we haven't seen it since. What do you think's going on?
I mean, again, when they gave that update earlier this week, they said that they were going to make some changes to the profile and everything after doing that 60-second long static fire. So I wonder if they saw something in there that maybe required them to go inside the ship to fix something, check back in the attic, work on the engines of some kind. Again, all speculation on this. I wonder if there's some relation to that and the changes that they need to make to it. Because obviously, after the mishap on Flight 7, they want to make sure that every single duck is in a row, and the duck that was quacking incorrectly was the ship. So you want to get them all in a row here.
And I agree. We talked about that last night on the show, that, with what's going on with Flight 7, and we're going to get into all of the regulatory, and we're going to talk about that later. We got a long show tonight. But we talked about it last night that they seem to be taking their time. They're going through the inspections of Ship 34 after that long duration static flyer, which of course went through all of the several phases of flight. I don't know if it went through all of them, but they throttled those engines. They did what they needed and they got the data, and then they hid it away in Mega Bay 2, and we haven't seen it since. So they're going through that thing with a fine-tooth comb. Now they're also probably loading the Starlink simulator, the mass simulators for the tests that we expect them to do in on orbit. They want to make sure they can relight, of course. And again, we're going to get into the licensing in just a little bit, because people are like, this is an exact replica of Flight 7, but is it? Because they've made some changes there. I think the delay is probably technical. I know Ryan just kind of points out the obvious and says, the ship's not on the stand. And I agree with you, Ryan. But I think there's multiple layers of why they keep delaying this. They had a big launch window anyway. I mean, they went from Wednesday the 24th to March the 6th, which gave them time to do that. Have they ever, Ryan, I'll ask you, do you remember ever having a larger launch window? Because I've never seen them go like that long. 10 days.
There have been a few launches where they've initially announced a date and kept pushing it. Officially announced a date, well, this isn't that much of a push from the official announcement to that, but in terms of notices popping up, I have to harken back to Flight 2. Flight 2, if I remember correctly, we were seeing them pop notices up very, very early on. I think it was even as early as September. And the thing didn't go to November. There was a lot of uncertainty around that, especially with the water deluge, having to get the approval from Fish and Wildlife and everything like that. There's always been a lot of open-endedness, especially when there's a mishap investigation has to get closed. It's always one of those things is you're waiting for that to get closed. But yeah, they've had large windows like this before. So it's nothing new. And in terms of the ship, what they would have to do to the ship. So they stated that they want to get all this stuff with 34 done that they intended to do with 33, which includes regenerative cooled tiles, metal tiles. Mm-hmm. They are making a smooth edge rather than a jagged edge on their heat shield to test what data they got from Flight 6. Because you remember, Flight 7 never re-entered. Mm-hmm. Well, it kind of re-entered, but in a lot of pieces. But, and then you're having to do any modifications from the testing that you just did and from the stuff you found out from Flight 7. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff they have to do, a lot of boxes they have to check off, a lot of quality assurance they need to make sure is done, and they make sure it's done right. So they're taking their time, which is, I'd rather wait and it work perfect than they rush and fly it and it not.
Yeah, exactly. And you almost answered a question from Creative Bytes TB, who's asking for more of a comprehensive list or the possible major changes. At NASASpaceflight, by the way, of course, in chat, you can at NASASpaceflight, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. He says, do we have a summary of all the possible major changes to the ship that we know of for this next flight? And you covered a lot of them. But some of those major changes are the catch hardware, potentially now structural. Like you said, the beveling of the edges for the heat shield, the removal of the heat shield. They're still testing a lot of those. Are there other major changes, Ryan, going along with their question? Are there other major changes to this ship over 33?
So the catch hardware will likely just be bolted on like it was on 33. We do know for a fact that on 35 and up, they will be structural catch hardware, because we saw the cutouts in the payload bay on 35, and then 36 was rolled into Mega Bay 2 with the pins already installed. So my guess is they'll just bolt those on. There's no reason to go through and actually do the structural part that saves time just bolting them on. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to test if they survive reentry or not. In terms of other changes to 33, my guess is they're going to cut more vents for the holes. It does sound like they are introducing a nitrogen purge to the attic, which is the spot between you basically have the aft dome, and then you have the three RVACs, and then the three center three centers there. So the attic kind of runs around there, and then there's basically sandwiched in between is the false ceiling, which has the engine shielding, which protects, the aft dome and whatnot from hot staging. So they put in a nitrogen purge for that. So that has to get added in, which means like another COPV or two, plus the lines that run down to the attic. And then, of course, the way to, spray the nitrogen or whatever you want to call it out into that system, from that system. And then, my guess is you're probably going to get reinforcements to the propellant lines that go, probably the transfer tubes that are going straight from the common dome down, as well as on the Raptor engines themselves. And then software changes, I would assume. Make sure you don't hit that harmonic resonance again.
Yeah.
So you make sure you change you probably more sensors to be able to watch if you're going to hit that, and then be able to change the thrust level as needed to make sure you don't hit that resonance and you don't break and shake your entire vehicle apart. So
yeah,
a lot of little things here and there would be my guess.
And again, that was rapid state of iteration is what SpaceX is known for. And a lot of other launch providers are starting to pick up, and they're doing their own. I mean, Stoke is one of those. Sawyer, I want to come to you because G-Stick wants to know, when do you think they're gonna roll this ship out, given that we were supposed to launch Wednesday, then tomorrow. Now it's no earlier than Monday at 5:30 local. When do you think they're going to roll this? What's that time window that they have?
I mean, we've talked about it in the past. The speed at which they've been able to roll out and stack in the past is a couple days. Ryan, do you have the exact number on that? What is it, 4 days?
5.
5.
It's Flight 6.
Right.
So Flight 6, they rolled out the ship. They rolled out the booster on the 13th and put it on the OLM on the 14th. They rolled out the ship on the 11th. They stacked them both on the 14th. They did a tanking test and flew on the 19th. So that's the quickest they've ever been able to do it. Granted, they rolled the booster out. They rolled the ship out before the booster on that time. But, I mean, I could see them rolling this thing out. I would say Saturday night would kind of pushing it. If they roll it out Saturday night, stack it Sunday morning, it gives them a solid 24 to 36 hours to do final checkouts. I think that'd be enough.
Yeah,
they can do it. And
yeah, I was thinking that if we don't really see the doors open by Saturday at some point, then that would be more concerning. But I mean, obviously, if they were to roll it out tomorrow, that would be great timing-wise to give them a little more time, because we've seen in the past sometimes they stack things and they don't always line up exactly right the first time, and it takes a couple hours to wiggle and get it right. So I would hope by Saturday that at least, again, that we'll start to see the doors open and realize, okay, maybe they are going to roll out Ship 34 finally.
Yeah, that would be nice. And again, when they do roll the ship out and stack it, that is when we're going to, hello, Jake. That is when we're going to debut the Flight 8 patch. I know a lot of people are asking. You can still pick up some Flight 7 patches available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And there's a ton of new stuff that they're loading to the shop. And in fact, the newest thing, believe it or not, is a tote bag that looks like the thermal protection tile system, the heat shield tiles. And I pulled a picture of it today. I don't know if the guys in the control room one of the Jay, who's pushing the buttons in the background, or Carson, who's assisting him, want to pull that picture up. But I was playing around. I sent it to a couple friends. So what do you guys think of this? They were like, yeah, it's pretty cool. But the guy that's carrying it is like, he's way too happy. He's got his little tote bag. But check that out, shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And again, that's just a way you guys can support us here at NSF, because we can't do this without you guys, and we can't do this without you guys becoming members, like Mitch, who became a Pad Rat member. Thank you so much for joining us, Mitch. We appreciate that support. And everybody, just hit like and do what you're going to do. Thank you for commenting, and thank you for joining us here at Countdown to Launch. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk regulations. What we're looking for, we track all the NOTMARs and the NOTAMs and all of the regulatory paperwork that comes out, launch licenses and so on. So one of the big things that came out in the last couple of days was that the launch license apparently has been updated. And Sawyer, I'm going to come to you. You're nodding. Can you tell us what that update is and how potentially that's going to affect the test flight potentially coming up Monday?
Yeah, so in terms of SpaceX's launch license for Starship, they kind of have like a numbering system. So this was revision 5.1 originally. Just today they released revision 5.2. Oh, I know, exciting. But what's really exciting is once we go inside of it and see that there is a lot of verbiage that relates to orbital flight. So what you're seeing is the list of the changes that they've made between version 5.1 and 5.2. So a couple of them now say going into orbit. So you see one that changed it from a flight to suborbital flight. That's talking about the suborbital ones now. They've added another paragraph defining what an orbital flight is. So that ends after deployment of all payloads upon completion of the SpaceX Super Heavy's first steady state orbit. There's no payload deployment after the vehicle component impact on landing or landing on Earth. So basically they're saying that we are now able to send Starship orbital. Does that mean that's going to happen on this flight? No, it definitely doesn't seem likely on this flight. A lot of this seems like they are preparing for Flight 9. So I think that we will see some interesting changes here of upcoming orbital flights, maybe for Flight 9. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, they're doing this for future flights. Obviously, this one, because of what happened to Flight 7, this is pretty much going to be a duplicate flight of 7. Ryan, this is all for stuff in the future, right? Did we lose Ryan? I think it's for stuff in the future.
Right, yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, Sawyer, you and I can talk about this when you get Ryan back. I mean, as you said, you know, ships are now, they're modifying these licenses so they can go orbital. It doesn't mean they're going to go orbital. And again, we expect that Flight 8 is going to be a duplicate of Flight 7 with 6 fewer simulators, mass simulators in the payload, right?
Exactly. Well, this one, I believe it's 4 in this one for the mass simulators in this case.
Yep.
But yeah, and the big thing is that that's just for the orbital portion of it. One of the things that was noted in there is that if they plan to reuse it, they still need a re-entry specific license. So this is the launch portion of the license. Now, just like we're used to seeing with Falcon 9, they have their license when it comes to the actual launch procedures, and then they have the re-entry portions, especially for something like a Dragon capsule. You'll see special NOTAMs and NOTMARs and things that go out related to that. So that is another key thing. This is mainly the launch part and the orbital part, but in terms of the getting out of orbit part, that's the next thing. But there are a lot of other things that they'll be able to do in terms of getting into that, defining what it's going to be, when they need to get final checks of the vehicle before they were to perform a re-entry to prove that everything is working and safe. That's all listed in there now.
And again, this is a modification of the previously granted launch license for 7. This is not a launch license. So this is not, like the FAA has not said you can launch Flight 8, because we're still waiting on the determination from the Flight 7 mishap investigation, aren't we?
Correct, yes. As cool as this is to see the launch license itself updated, SpaceX still needs something from the FAA to either say, yes, the investigation is closed, or we're comfortable enough with what you've sent us change-wise that will allow you to launch now, and down the road you'll give us the final findings of everything that we sign off on. We haven't gotten either of those yet. So as nice as this is to see the Flight 8 launch license modified, they still technically can't launch with it.
Yeah, and as you know, Alex is saying in the back channel, this is not an authorization for a re-entry. It defines what that re-entry is considered, the purposes for it, and so on. So in future flights, yes, we'll see these types of things coming from the launch license, modifications when they test other things.
Yep, and that re-entry license also needed the approval for that specific.
Yeah, yeah, and this is actually a good thing. This happens all the time, and in research and development, like I said, all the pictures you see on Starbase Live, it's all R&D. So they're constantly asking, we need to do this next thing, we need to do this next thing, using different frequencies for their Starlink communications and all the other things. So we track all of that stuff here at NSF, and we appreciate that you guys are here with us, just rocket nerds doing rocket things. Let's talk about some of those. Go ahead.
Let me just clarify one quick thing first, because Alex made a good point about that. Even though this is all talking about orbital for Flight 8, there's still the regular things that they have in place for suborbital. So for Flight 8, they can still go suborbital. That is still totally authorized. They don't need a special license for their suborbital flights for this one. So all they need is the mishap investigation approval to be able to go for this flight.
Yeah, don't they call it orbital-like trajectory? Is that what they said in there? Something like that. I heard that somewhere.
No, they say.
Ryan,
I'm
go
back,
ahead,
by the way. They say suborbital trajectory. So I was kind of hearing some of what Sawyer was talking about. So what they did add, as just to back him up on it, what they did add is they talked about how they basically added part of what is required to do an orbital flight. So they added that. They still need an authorization for reentry. That's not included in the launch license yet, and I don't think it's going to be a separate reentry license, because you also have to remember, this is the first time anyone has had a Part 54 license, a Part 50 license that's like this. Okay? No one's ever had a license like this. My guessing, if Jay, you want to bring up the license, I actually want to point something out, if he's able to.
Why has nobody, I'm going to ask the question for people who don't know. I already know the answer, but I want to just make sure we ask the question. It's the reusability. Why has nobody had a license like this?
Well, because this is part of the new FARs. When the FAA came up with these a couple of years back, all current launchers that are on the old ones, as I remember correctly, it's like Part 415 and a couple other parts together, will have to switch over to this next March, so March of 2026. If you want to scroll down a little bit, Jay, into the authorization section. So that's the definitions. This is the authorization. So you've got A, pre-flight ground operations, and then B, which is flights. It tells you to Gulf of Mexico, SpaceX Boca Chica launch complex, and to the Indian Ocean location specified in its application. My guess, and this is a guess, because we haven't seen a license like this before, for the reentry of Starship as a reusable vehicle to then land at a specified destination. My guess is you'll get a C under authorization, so you'll have a 4C with a 1 on it. It'll 4C reentry. Under that, you will have an authorization to land in the Gulf of Mexico, back at the SpaceX Boca Chica launch complex, or the Indian Ocean location specified in the application. And then, on top of that, if SpaceX says, I don't know, maybe they want to land at the Cape, you can then add that as a revision to the launch license. The biggest question I have, and this kind of is for the future of the program, will this license cover for Cape, or are they going to need a separate launch license to launch from the Cape like Falcon? So Falcon 9's got a launch license for 39A, for 40, and for Vandenberg. It's got one for all 3 launch pads that it has. And it'll eventually need one for, the other one in Vandenberg. So we'll eventually have 4. I guess it won't have 4 because it's going to be under Part 450, since by the time that pad's operational, it'll be March 2026. But I am curious to see if the new license structure that they have made allows them to just add in launch locations and reentry locations so that it's all encompassed under one license. So it cuts down the bureaucracy, it cuts down, the trying to planning, it cuts down everything, and it's boom, done, all said and done. I'm curious to see if that's what they end up doing. It's something we're going to have to watch out for, but the reason why there's not a reentry part in this license is because SpaceX hasn't demonstrated reentry yet on Block 2. They haven't. My guess is, with a successful Flight 8, no issues, everything like that, they will go ahead and issue the reentry authorization, thus allowing them to go to orbit on Flight 9 and reenter to either the Gulf of Mexico or the SpaceX Boca Chica launch complex, or if the Indian Ocean, if they have to, and try to catch.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the new revision really comes in. Is that's where they're pushing towards. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see what happens after Flight 8.
Well, Eric Souter has a question that kind of follows up with what we were talking about from a launch license perspective. At NASASpaceflight, just how much trouble would a company get in if they launched without an FAA license? I'm going to go with a lot. Yeah,
A lot of trouble.
That's right. Yeah.
Enough that they could get all of their launch license privileges revoked and not be able to launch. Like if they tried to do that with Starship, they could lose their ability to launch Falcon 9.
Yeah, and everybody, of course, is honing in on the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America thing in the launch license. Everybody's having a good time with that.
Yeah, which I mean,
go
there
ahead,
was
sir.
there was some questionable things with FAA licensing with what was it, Flight 9 of SN9. So yeah, SpaceX has learned their lesson as well. That was I don't want to say a slap on the wrist, a heavy slap on the wrist that basically says, you do this again, you're not launching 8. Thank you. So yeah.
It was SN8 to SN9, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. So they're not doing that again anytime soon. They're going to take the time and get it right.
Yeah, agreed. Let's switch over. There's some really good questions about the boosters, and we know we're going to eventually see a Block 2 booster. Outdoorsman Show has a question about booster 14, 15, and the ones that are in production. At NASA Spaceflight, is it worth to stop the stacking of B-17 if booster 14 and booster 15, if caught, and 16 focus on reuse? So there on your screen you see booster 15. It's on the stand. They've removed the hot staging ring, but it's an interesting question about the stacking of these and the cadence at which they're producing these boosters from a test perspective. We all expect them to reuse booster 14, hopefully on Flight 9. What do you guys think about this? Is it worth to stop? I don't know if stacking is the right word. I think creation or build process, the cadence of that. Ryan, I'll come to you first, then I'm going to come to you, Sawyer, for backup.
I mean, 17's almost done. Right now, they are installing press pipes on 17, as well as raceway pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing to do with 17 is to swap bridge, is to put it on the legless stand, swap bridge cranes, and move it over to and stack the methane tank on top of the LOX tank. That's the next step, and then you get a full booster. And then on top of that, if you look at the fact that they just took a booster cap plus a booster load spreader into Mega Bay 1, and the thrust sim is sitting out in the ring yard, which means booster 16 is ready, which means they got booster 16 ready quicker than any booster they have in the past, which is about a little over 60 days. No, finish 17 and fly it. You want to get as much flights, because you also talk about, what if they don't catch 15? You got to put it out there. What if they don't catch 15?
Yeah.
There's also the thing is, can they refly these more than once? My guess is they fly another 7 Block 1 booster flights. That's a reflight of 14, and then another 6 flights with between 15, 16, and 17. That's it. And basically you get 2 flights each, assuming you catch them. It's, because by then you should have a Block 2 booster ready to go, assuming they start stacking right away. But 16 goes to show how quickly they've gotten 16 from final stacking to cryo, which is, a little over 60 days, so 2 months. I mean, why? That's a lot faster than they have in the past. That means from the start of stacking to cryo is now 4 months instead of 6. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, well, now they got it done faster. And it should only be about a month and a half between cryo and flight readiness. So a month and a half, maybe 2 months. So, early April, hopefully maybe they can be a little bit quicker with 35, and Flight 9 is early mid-April. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those things. They can get a little faster with this and get flights in, but no, they need to fly. They don't need to be skipping vehicles right now. They need to fly.
Yeah, yeah. Sawyer, jump in on that question about the boosters and the ships. I think they're obviously building more ships because one booster and how many ships. What do you think about Booster 17, potentially the last Block 1, maybe?
I mean, I think a lot of it's going to come down to these upcoming flights. If they've got this booster design pretty well nailed down with this flight, with Booster 15, and they go ahead and go for the reflight on Flight 14, I think that's going to give them a lot of data. Until that time, while they then reanalyze a booster for the first time that has flown twice, they're going to want to keep flying anyway. Sure, you could refly 15, but at that point, you might as well just, hey, here's what we got, here's what we know, let's work on the new ones in the meantime. So I could see 17 absolutely being finished. As for there being an 18, that's a version 2 or current version of the booster, we'll see. But I think they'll absolutely finish 17, and maybe we'll get integrated hot stage rings so we don't have to see what's happening right now of the hot stage ring going up.
Yep, there it goes. Yeah, they came down last night. It's nice to see it going up again. There you go. It's a great shot. Great camera work, guys, by the way. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So actually, Ryan brought up something about Flight 9. We could touch on that a little bit, but we'll get back to some questions. The Ace Rach wants to know, let's see, at NASASpaceflight, could Flight 9 launch on 420 for 2-year anniversary? And you said it yourself, Ryan, it's potentially early April, mid-April. I'm thinking mid to later April. It all depends on Flight 8. If everything goes great and they get all the data they want and the ships are ready to go, then yeah, sure, 420 would be an Elon thing to do. April 29th would be my personal day because I would love to see Flight 9 on somebody's birthday.
It's it's one of those things. If they were to do it, I mean, memes and everything aside, and yes, it'd be on the anniversary of Flight 1, but that would also mean that 2 years that would mean either exactly or in and around 2 years after Flight 1, we all remember what happened to the pad, what happened to the vehicle, everything. It means that it took them 2 years to go from that to a vehicle that's now in orbit, a booster that's possibly being reused, and trying to catch a ship. Who would have thought that 2 years from that point we would be here? And they're using hot staging. They're not even using the staging method that they intended for that flight. Who thought we would be here? I mean, it's kind of crazy. As I think it was Alex said last night, they're getting close to the launch cadence of Saturn V, at its peak, and they're only getting started.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And as you see the hot stage ring, they're not messing around tonight. They pick it up and up it goes. And this is a good sign. We know they want to get to the batteries and all of the other things that are underneath the hot stage ring, the grid fin motors, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a good sign that that's going back up there. And once they get that attached, hopefully we'll see a rollout here pretty soon. I say it all the time that we can't do this without support from you guys. So let me stop and just thank a couple of folks who joined us tonight and wanted to show their support and then also ask a question. Boost New Soul, $20 super chat. Thank you so much for that. At NASASpaceflight, just have SpaceX delay the launch until I'm off work. Somebody text Elon and just let him know that we need them to go ahead and delay that launch. Thanks in advance, LOL. Appreciate you watching and for that super chat. Sawyer's all over it. Also, Craig with a store message. Bring on Flight 8. I don't want to say that. Long live Ship 26.
It's dead.
It's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. As Kevin is right now screaming in the back channel, yay!
Well, Carson is at least.
Carson is, yeah.
The old version of Ship 33 still exists. So its payload bay is still in Star Factory. Why? I don't know, but it's still there.
Just
it was
'cause.
spotted through the glass a little bit ago. So
Burn it with fire.
All right, so let's do a recap here about what we're expecting. Like it's common to see, we look for NOTAMs and not Mars and all that stuff, road closures and stuff, and they come and go inside the launch window. So where are we right now today? Now knowing that we're not going to launch on Friday or Saturday, Sunday was never on the table, and they've moved it to Monday. They're going to obviously cancel the road closures for tomorrow and all the NOTAMs and things for not only Boca Chica, but also for the Indian Ocean have to be updated. So who wants this one? Raise your hand. Who wants this question? Nobody.
Ryan, you got this one?
It's just nobody's trying to. Ryan,
no,
go
I was going to
ahead.
say, you want it, Sawyer?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care.
It's the non-sexy question. Nobody wants this one. Where are we right now?
We're sitting pretty.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, they can do these launch license. I mean, not the launch license. Excuse me, the road closures pretty fast. I mean, Cameron County works really well with SpaceX, and all they do is they simply move the NOTAMs, the notice to air missions, and then the not Mars, which are the ones for the ocean, notice to mariners, and there you go on your screen. That's basically
Even
the road
schedule.
closures. They cancel these things all the time, and they're real quick. So they're going to redo all of these for Monday, and you know we've got more countdown to launches. So as things change, we'll bring you that.
So it's already done for Monday there, Gene. So the only thing I think they're missing is the Marine Safety Information Bulletins, the Mexico side and the U.S. side. I think those are the only two they're missing, and then I think the sound notice. I think
Right,
that's
because
the
we
only
saw
thing-
the updated, I believe there was the updated NOTAM already, Notice to Airmen Formerly Air Missions, that clears the airspace out of the way.
And they have the TFRs as well. So
Right,
Mhm.
the
Temporary flight
restrictions.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, so the only thing we're missing,
Is a launch license
Pretty good. Oh, well, yeah, that's
no, the only thing, we have the
And a
launch
ship.
license.
and a ship.
We have the
rolled out.
license. We need the mishap investigation closed.
Yeah.
Is what we need too. Which I mean, that can be released sometime tomorrow. It could be released Saturday. I mean, it could be even released Sunday if it so had to be, or it could be released even on Monday before they launch. There's a lot. I mean, they have a couple of days until it can be closed. My guess is it'll probably be tomorrow or even Saturday at that point. Especially with this revision coming out on the launch license, I would expect the closure of that mishap not far behind. Although technically the two are unrelated, I would expect that to, be in short order. So,
Yeah. Pizza in the back channel says the NOTAM for the U.S. side for the Gulf is still missing, so we're waiting on that, and they're just they'll just change the date on that. Let's talk about flight profile a little bit. For Flight 7, we had pretty high expectations. They obviously good launch profile uphill. They do a single engine relight, and they've expanded the launch profile a little bit on this one. They are still going to load what I call the Starlink mass simulators.
Dumlinks.
Everybody has different names for them. But I don't really need the map. We love watching the hot stage ring go up. What I'm talking about is there's some questions coming in about the recovery of the booster specifically, and about its angle when it comes in. So we can talk briefly about that, because Brian Moore wants to know at NASASpaceflight, and we appreciate the questions. Keep them coming in. Why do they approach the tower for catch tilted so the engines roast the tower instead of top first, right? To get the engines out of the way of the booster quick disconnect. And yeah, Ryan, you're on screen. We'll go with you first.
It requires less prop to do. So if they tried, in order to not cook the tower, it would basically have to aim the booster. They'd have to aim it at pad B or farther out. They'd have to aim it more towards the village and then fire the landing burn. So basically, you have your tower here. They'd have to aim it pointing
it's behind
way this way rather than down this way. So you'd have to plan to overshoot the tower and then burn and then come straight down. Doing it the way they do is they're able to aim it, burn it, and then kind of like that. So
Yeah.
it's less
Remember
it's less fuel needed, and not only that, if for some reason the landing burn doesn't work, it hits the dunes closer to the beach rather than closer to the village.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one of the other big things, and it's worth keeping in mind. It's the same thing with Falcon 9. When Falcon 9's first stage comes in, it intentionally is pointed away from the drone ship. Only once the engine fires up and the onboard computer goes, all right, things are working right, does it then steer itself towards the drone ship. And if you look, it's essentially the same kind of maneuver, but we're just seeing it from the ground here more with Starship. So it's the same deal. It's not going to aim directly at the tower, so that's why it's not going just directly into it to begin with. It is doing that sort of reverse power slide to, like you said, if something does happen once those engines light up and they realize, oh crud, this isn't going to work, it's either going to splash into the Gulf or crash into the dunes rather than destroy the launch pad or any potential property.
Which, by the way, would make awesome video from our cameras that are out there in the dunes. I'm not speaking that into existence. I'm just saying.
I mean, we have some pretty good footage of the dunes of a landing. I like that.
And now you talk about ship. Ship's going to be kind of fun, and I say that. So basically, you have your tower here. Let's see if I can visualize this. And ship will basically come around. It'll come around and then back up. So it'll overshoot. And then when it does its flip and burn, it'll basically beep back up into the tower, do its burn, and get caught. That's basically how it's going to happen. It's how it should happen. We'll see what it looks like when it actually does.
Yeah.
The wide camera shots, I really hope it's perfectly clear when they actually do try the attempt. It'll look amazing, and I can't wait to see it happen. But it's kind of how it should work.
And the reason it can do that is because, unlike Falcon 9, the thrust-weight ratio in these vehicles means they can technically hover. Falcon 9 can't. It just comes down and does its thing, hopefully landing.
Hover slam, suicide burn, whatever you want to call it.
But these guys actually come in, and that's why you see, and our cameras are as close as we could possibly get them. The SpaceX cameras are right there on the tower. So you see the ship kind of shimmying its way in between the chopsticks. It'll be interesting to see the beep back up the ship.
We're going to call it from now on, aren't we? We're just
That's a new sound effect we need. It's a new sound effect.
And I'm also sure there's going to be a chat command probably after the stream now for it.
Probably. Knowing Crispy.
Yeah, that would be good. So they almost got that hot staging ring on there. And one of the other questions came in from Robert. At NASASpaceflight, by which flight do you expect them to stop jettisoning the hot stage ring? I'm going to go ahead and answer this one, and you guys can jump in after me. When they launch the first Block 2 booster. I mean, that's the easy answer. What do you think, Sawyer?
That's honestly, it's not even a fight mode, Jay. I wish it was. I mean, because that's actually sound logic. I mean, it's one of those, I guess once they get to that next version and they finalize the design, they'll attach it more. I don't think we're going to see it, at least, like we said, we saw Ship 17, or Booster 17 is still being worked on. I don't think Booster 17 is going to get a permanent one. Maybe the first version 2 won't, but I think once we get to Block version B2, whatever you want to call it, of Booster, they'll hopefully start integrating it and being able to go for that full reuse. I wish I could fight, Jay. I'm sorry.
There's nothing to fight about. I agree with the whole thing. I mean, and Booster 18 looks like it's going to be a... Jack caught a label, if you've seen the last daily, or last night, Jack caught a label saying a ring stand that was set aside for B18.1. So that'd be the first booster test tank we've seen in a while. So that could be and it's for a forward. So I don't know. We might see an integrated hot stage ring test article come out at some point here. So yeah. We can be on the lookout for that, and that'll be it'll definitely be the first Block 2. My guess is they'll go straight to integrated because they don't want to be doing this anymore. This is a giant pain to do every time.
Well, so my answer was tongue-in-cheek because some people might not know why they had the hot stage ring in the first place or why they have to jettison it. And Ryan, I'm just going to kind of go straight back to you. about why, you said earlier in the show they had a different profile for separating the ship and the booster. I mean, it wasn't a full-on Kerbal flip, but it was rotate the ship and booster and have it separate that way. That obviously didn't work. So why do they have this hot stage ring?
The original plan was to flip the whole stack and at the same time separate ship so that you kicked the ship off, which would have been amazing to witness, but they never got to it or something like that.
It looks good on paper.
Yeah,
execution was slightly off.
What's the worst that could happen? Ares 1X. Ares 1X.
I mean, Flight 1 did flip nicely, but it didn't do its kick or whatever it was supposed to. Either way, the reason why they jettisoned the hot stage ring, it's not because of mass. Mass really wouldn't be that big of an issue. Yeah, it's 9-10 tons. That really wouldn't be an issue. The issue is aerodynamics. They never showed us, but there were definitely signs on Flight 3 on Booster 10 that the hot stage ring got ripped off the top of the booster as it came back through. Because if you remember, after that, they then jettisoned the hot stage ring. My guess is they have aerodynamic issues with it, which is something you can definitely solve down the line. But I think they basically went, whatever, let's just, jettison it for the Block 1 flights. We got approval to do it. We'll just do it from now on. And when, for Block 2, we'll figure out the aerodynamics and everything else for it, so it's not an issue. So
I thought it had to also do with the fact that because this was a hot fix, if you will, that this actually changes the CG of the booster on descent. And to get rid of that, then it flies as designed. I mean, you'd think putting a 5-ton piece of steel on top of your rocket would change it. 10-ton. There's a great shot of it. You lose the scale. I tell people this all the time. When you're watching on screen, you lose the scale of how massive these things are. Okay, I'm 6'2", and how tall is that? 6.5 feet? Is that one ring?
It's about 6 feet. Less? It's 1.82 meters. It's a single, which is the height of a single ring. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, unless you're standing there, and I invite everybody, come to Boca Chica and just go out there and check out the size of the rocket. You'll be stunned at how big it is, because when you see it on screen and it's this big, it just doesn't do it justice.
That clock inception there.
Yes. Oh yeah, with Starlink 12-13 with delayed. But anyway, continue.
Sorry, that was funny.
So Gamer wants to give us. Hey, gamers out there wants to put in the Daily Cheesecake Fund. Thank you so much for that $2 super chat. Appreciate that, and appreciate you joining us tonight. And again,
is that the stand?
That is the booster thrust sim. That is going to go into Mega Bay 1 and get booster 16. Which could roll as early as tonight and go to Massey's to get cryo done. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, I tell you what, Pat is saying at NASASpaceflight, delays mean more countdown to launch streams. So you're right, and we're just going to keep doing the countdown to launches because we're counting down. And then of course you got to join us for Stakeout. You got to join us for This Week in Spaceflight tomorrow. You got to join us for the Flame Trench tomorrow. You got to join us for our launch stream. It's just, we're all here. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're all over the planet, but most of us are here in Boca Chica that can make it for this flight. All of our great photographers and everybody, they're already in the field. They're doing their work. They're making sure all the cameras are working. All the guys in the background too, doing a really good job. So
Alex calling me out for not interrupting Gene for the
I know I always want to say, because I'm 6'2". And I always tell people, I'm like, see the rings? That's my height. And it's not exact. I mean, I'm not exactly 1.8 meters tall, but you kind of, no Gene for comparison memes. No, none of that. Just, it's about 6 feet. Each ring is about 6 feet. So, and yes, Alex needs to call out Ryan more and more.
Yeah, the two people that talked the most didn't want to talk.
So, for those of you who don't know, this is the whole backstory. Ryan and I we're friends, but every time I say something, he's like, well, no, it's kind of and I'm like, okay. And I will totally 100% grant the fact that he knows way more about this stuff than I do. So does Sawyer. So does everybody else. They keep charts. They track this stuff left and right. And I learn something every time I get to talk with them and have them on the show. So a lot of people are asking in the chat about when is this thing going to roll out, and what is the timeline? And we talked about it a little earlier, and Sawyer kind of said it best. If we don't see the doors open Saturday night, maybe, then we're probably going to be looking at a later date. But they might surprise us. Remember, it's coming out of Mega Bay 2, other than stacking, ready to go, right, Ryan?
I believe
Sawyer?
his internet is having a rough day.
It's
Yes.
coming out ready to go, right, Sawyer?
Exactly. Yes, Gene. Yeah. At this point, pretty much everything is ready to go that we know of. We're not exactly sure of all the final workings that they're doing in there. I'm sure they're making any final modifications and tweaks, especially after that 60-second static fire. What was that, a week or two ago? So once the doors open, that's a good indication it's ready.
Yeah. And every time it opens, and I'm watching Starbase Live, I'm like peeking in, like, okay, what can we see? What do we see? We saw a barrel section move today, and I mean, if you don't have Starbase Live up just all the time like I do, something goes by, and the worst part is when they're showing Mega Bay 2 and like a van goes by, and I just catch it out of the side of my, I'm like, what was that? Oh, what was that? I got to go back and look, and it's like a delivery van. I'm like, oh, come on. So
the ghost of Ship 26.
Yeah. Ryan, are you back with us? No, Ryan. All right, so let's see. Dun, dun, dun. John wants to know when we're going to get a camera mounted to the booster. When are we going to get a camera? Well, SpaceX already does, and we would love to. So, John, if you know anybody, Owlman, if you know anybody, be sure to let us know so we can get a camera on there. Because I would love to stream within the ship, on the booster, on its way to Mars, on its way to the moon, what have you. Let's stream it all.
Yeah, I think DOS would very happily volunteer to mount said camera.
Yep. This is a great question from GreekBo7UK. At NASASpaceflight, could Flight 9 be a night launch to give as much daylight for the ship landing? So let's talk about orbital trajectories if we've got Ryan back. If not, Sawyer, you and I can talk about it.
I think I'm back.
There
Am I
it
back?
is. So
I don't,
when we see Flight 9, right, and if it goes orbital, and of course we have all the proper regulations and so on, they're going to catch the booster. Knock on wood. I'm an optimist. But then there's no rush to bring the ship back. They've got time other than potentially boil off in orbit, right, Ryan? I'll come to you first.
Well, they're gonna right now. It's 5:30 to 6:30. So if they go right at the end of the window, it'll be at least at this window, it'll be like right after sunset. So I guess technically night launch. I guess after sunset. But anyways, either way, for boil off, it's not really gonna be much of an issue. It'll just be in the headers, and the header tanks are relatively insulated compared to the mains. The main tanks will be empty. So basically, once they get to orbit, they more or less dump the mains because it's for CG and other reasons during reentry. So the boil off should be fine. Battery power should also be fine. I don't see why it wouldn't be to stay on in orbit for, I think it'll be about 12 hours. It'll be about, 6 orbits? I think something along those lines, if I remember. See if I can refocus my camera automatically. I don't know if it can. It's brought to you by great internet, everyone. You gotta love it when it decides to conk out in the 1 hour you're trying to do a show. But, Anywho,
anyway,
we'll just deal with it.
But yeah, in terms of,
if I squint, I can see.
There's about 6 pixels. I can count each one. In terms of nighttime, though, I don't think it's a necessity to say, we have to launch the main launch itself and catch the booster at night so we can get the ship during the day. Like you said, we're 5-6 orbits, 90 minutes apiece. you could have like they used to do, which was the early morning launches at say 7 or 8 a.m. and then still catch it at like 5:30, 6 p.m. Or depending on, if they catch it at the other tower, then it really doesn't matter. They could do a couple orbits and come right back and catch it over at Pad B. So there's plenty of options. It will be nice to eventually see a Starship night launch, but I think it will be still cool to have that first flight with the booster and ship catch during the day.
Yeah, I agree. And those days are coming. And stay with NSF because we're going to bring you every launch, not only from SpaceX, okay? I see a lot of people saying things in the chat about, SpaceX. You know what? There's so many other great launch providers out there, and NSF is going to be there. This is a countdown to launch about Flight 8. So yeah, we're talking a lot about SpaceX. Let's actually, in the next few minutes, talk about Flight 9 for a little bit. We don't know when that's going to be. We have our speculations. We know what we're looking for. There are a lot of smarter people than me putting their guesses down on paper. We'll see who wins. I want to answer this question from Heinrichs at NASASpaceflight. Booster 16 or booster 14 for Flight 9? I know what I'm going to say. Sawyer, I want to know what you say. 14.
I'm going with 14. I mean, at this point, everything that they're working towards is that reusability factor. And depending on, assuming that everything with this goes really well and they get the catch once again for the booster on this, I think it's a no-brainer. They've obviously been looking at 14. They've been checking it out. If everything is good to go, why not refly it, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that would be the data they need for a reused booster. And of course, they've got 12, which is sitting over in the rocket garden, and they've got 14, which they've got inside Mega Bay, is it 1? Mega Bay 1? And I fully expect to see 14 come out eventually and static fire, because that to me would be amazing. I would love to see them reuse the booster. That's the whole goal. However,
exactly, and
they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's an older booster. I get that at this point now, technically. I mean, 15 already has major upgrades that they pointed out, the avionics, electronics, things like that. I'm sure 16 is going to be the exact same way. So it seems a little strange to go back to one that's on the older side, but I feel like that's also a better way to practice. If something does happen, oops, it's booster 14. We've already learned some of the upgrades that needed to be made, and they can make that ahead of 16 to potentially have that fly twice in a row, or then upgrade 15 and have that one fly again.
Yeah, how crazy is it going to be when they start catching and reusing boosters and we all get bored? Like, Ryan, imagine the future when we're like, oh yeah, they caught booster 27 5 times and they're on ship 45 and that thing's been around the moon and back 16 times. Is it ever going to get to that point? For me, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever get there. Ryan, what do you say? 469 something, 4 something?
I believe, Ryan, you're muted, just if you want to double check yourself here.
Yeah, sorry, muting, talking while muted, you gotta love it here at NSF. And I've tried to deal with, my ISP just not liking me today. But anyways, yeah, no, I don't think we'll get bored of it. We don't get bored of it at Falcon 9. I don't think we'll get bored of it with Starship.
I'll watch every one.
Yeah.
This is not your ordinary Starship.
Yeah, we want to see them reuse. Let me thank some folks. I can't wait for it to. I mean, then we've got like the human landing system and the Mars stuff. Just stay where you are. This is an amazing time to be alive. So obviously, if you join halfway through the show, SpaceX has moved it to Monday, the Flight 8. You're watching the screen right now. The hot stage ring just got lifted back up on booster 15, which is on, we call it the orbital launch mount, which is the launch mount for Tower 1. So we are fully expecting them. We know the windows of when they can roll that ship out. So I want to thank a bunch of folks that made tonight's countdown to launch possible. First of all, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Thank you so much for your support. I say it all the time. We can't do this without you guys. And also Trish Spain, exactly. Thank you for that super chat. Your bet is 14. I want to see it too. I want to see him catch it again. That's going to be crazy, and we're all going to go insane. And my two co-hosts, Sawyer Rosenstein. Sawyer, thanks for joining tonight on this Countdown to Launch.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Gene. It's a shame that we can't say launch tomorrow, but as someone pointed out, that means more countdown to launches. That means we get a flame trench, and we'll still get a launch, just Monday, hopefully.
Yep. And the one only Ryan Weber. Ryan, I love doing shows with you. Your in-depth knowledge and so detailed. We got to fix your internet, though, bro.
I don't know. I've never had this issue before. It's just, I guess it happens sometimes. The internet just decides not to like you. I mean, who can blame him? Anyways, it's a pleasure as always. Gene. Always love doing shows with you and Sawyer. So,
well, there's more coming. Countdown to Launch, of course. Be sure to check out Flame Trench tomorrow. We've got This Week in Spaceflight. We've got a whole lot more content coming from here at Boca Chica. I want to thank Jay Keegan in the background pressing buttons for us, and Carson doing the production work in the background as well. Thank you guys. But most importantly, thank you. Thank you for being here. We do this because we're just like you guys. And if you become a member, and thank all of you for being there, you get a lot of behind the scenes content. We talk to the members before the show, we talk to them after the show, but there's a lot of great stuff for members. You get access to our Discord channel. So there's a lot of NSF for our launch directors and our flight engineers and pretty much everybody who joins us at these levels, and our Capcom members and everybody. So thank you guys for being here and joining us for this Countdown to Launch. We're going to wrap it up here, and we're going to get some sleep. These crews are around the world, and they're getting busy. So
Let's sleep.
It was a lot of fun. We've got more, like I said, more content coming your way from NSF. So
it's everywhere. It's even on the socials. There's always more content coming in.
I forgot the socials. I keep forgetting the socials. Check us out. We're Facebook. I'm a Facebook guy, so we do a lot of Facebook. We do Instagram. We're on X. And you can also catch us at NASASpaceflight.com if you want to read some of the articles from our amazing writers. And Ryan, you were like back again.
Yeah,
so.
No, it's still it's still doing it. But luckily, I won't have to deal with it as I have to go to work. So
Yeah.
Sorry, I think the ghost went from my light to your internet.
I guess it did.
That's exactly right.
Exactly what happened.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you in the next one. Y'all, dream big and keep your eyes on the stars.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
125! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? We don't need any more of these.